Welcome back. Thanks again for joining us for another episode as we continue studying through the book of Judges together. We're glad you're with us and hope the next couple minutes will be an encouragement to you as we look at, again, a portion of one of the more familiar aspects of the book of Judges and one of the more familiar aspects of the story of the judge Gideon. Gideon is about to go into battle. He's about to take the 300 men. He just got done reducing his army from 32,000 down to 300 men, and he's about to take them into battle. He's a little nervous. At least that's what we can get from this, because God asks, if you're nervous, go. God already told him to go, or he's about to tell him to go, but he gives him one more opportunity. And the thing I appreciate about this is, even though God has already told him, with these 300, I'm going to give these people in your hand, even though he's already told them, in this passage we're going to hear, he says, go down, take them, we're going to find that God one more time reassures Gideon, one more time strengthens Gideon for the events that are about to take place. So again, we're in chapter 7, Judges chapter 7. We're going to jump into verse number 9. Judges 7:9 says, the same night the Lord said to him, arise, go down against the camp, for I have given it to your hand. But if you are afraid to go down to the camp with Purah, your servant. Now, the first part of the verse, God says, you've got your 300, it's commandment time, or it's go time, commanding him to go. Now, notice interesting something he says here. That same night, the Lord said to him. So the night after they got the 300 men, it wasn't like it took a long period of time. You've chosen your 300 men, that night go. There is something unique in that passage that's important for us to see. He didn't say that day. He didn't say the next day. He goes, that night go. In modern battle today, in the 21st century, 2026 time frame, for people to go to war at nighttime was a little more normal. They were, hiding under the shadow of night. They would have night vision glasses and things of that nature. They can get in and out without being seen, and there's a lot of training and practice that goes into these things happening. We know that a lot of crime takes place more at night simply because they're hidden. The Bible simply says men love darkness better than light because their deeds are evil. They're hidden. The light brings it out. It's harder to get away with things in the daytime. But why is that unique for a story like Gideon? In those day and age, if you watch any of the movies that depict war from the old time, from history, from Bible times, you're going to find they didn't fight at nighttime. There was no night vision glasses. There were no other unique ways to bring light. Literally, they fought. Their battle was hand-to-hand combat. And so you always waited until it was daytime. If you've seen them on TV, they actually establish the time, they establish the place, and then they meet face-to-face in daytime, and they go to war. This kind of was already happening, given up to the Revolutionary War, Civil War, that kind of thing. Hand-to-hand combat, straight on. This was the way they approached it. The deception of night came later. In this situation, God tells Gideon to go down at nighttime. So the first, granted, Gideon's not by nature a warrior. He's just living in obedience to God at this moment. But it is intriguing that God, in the culture of the day, is asking Gideon to do something that wasn't part of normal warfare. Now, the next episode, we'll dig a little bit deeper into why this command was extremely strategic into what God was going to do. But let's go ahead and continue to read on as he says, Gideon, if you're still nervous, I have one more thing to prove to you, one more reason that you need to follow me. And again, we appreciate the grace and mercy of God at this point in doing this. But let's go down and continue. I believe we're in verse number 11. And you shall hear, so he says, tell us to go down to the camp. He goes, you shall hear what they say. And afterward, your hand shall be strengthened to go down against the camp. Then he went down with Purah his servant to the outpost of the armed men who were in the camp. And the Midianites, the Amalekites, and all the people of the east lay along the valley like locusts in abundance, and their camels were without number as the sand is on the seashore in abundance. And so the story, as God puts it in here, simply reminds us of how many people. He's got 300 in his army. How many people are really there? Verse 13. When Gideon came, behold, a man was telling a dream to his comrade. And he said, behold, I dreamed a dream, and behold, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian, and came to the tent, and struck it so it fell, and turned it upside down, so that the tent lay flat. And his comrade answered, this is no other than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. God has given into his hand Midian and all the camp. And as soon as Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation, he worshipped, and he returned to the camp of Israel and said, arise, for the Lord has given the host of Midian into your hand. You can imagine from reading the story that this account, without a doubt, probably was one of the most powerful things to let Gideon go. I mean, he consumed that meal that Gideon made with fire. He consumed it. Then you've got the fleece, and he's got 2 different points of view. One time it was wet, one time it wasn't, and all these other things going on. And now you have a situation where God says, "I got one more thing." So they go down into a pagan area. This is not a spot that worshiped Jehovah God. This is not a spot that would even refer to God as someone to follow. And so he goes down to the camp, and he just happens upon a tent. He sees the immense army that he's supposed to take on. So if you have the wrong perspective, he goes into the camp, and all he sees is the enemy and how huge the enemy is. He sees that they have consumed the valley. They are in control. And then he gets but this one tent, and he hears this conversation. And the conversation is that there's a dream, and the guy says Gideon's going to come down. It wasn't even like God's coming down. He's going to use one of his men. He clearly stated Gideon. One thing I find intriguing is, like we've often said throughout these type of studies, we're going to see that God used somebody who was not a follower of God to encourage and help the follower of God to keep going. God works in ways we need him to. God works in ways that are necessary to accomplish his purpose, which is exactly what happened in this situation. And you go down, you see Gideon, who was seemingly ready to step out in obedience, and God says, "Let me give you one more thing." And so now, as we get ready to look at Gideon going down to war, to the most impractical war or practical battle per se, you're going to see in world history and biblical history of all the things, this was definitely one of the strangest, at least militaristic approach to battle, but you're going to see how there's actually some simple common sense to what God did in this battle, and we'll look at that in the next episode. Let me encourage you that maybe God doesn't always give us his instruction as clearly. Obviously, it's different than God doesn't speak to us verbally. God doesn't put it in places. We hear visions interpreted with our name on it. But yet God does give us direction. We've stated this more than once. It's not always easy to follow that direction because sometimes we have to step on faith, but that doesn't mean it's not right. It doesn't mean it's not the best thing and that God's not going to continue to bless and do his work in it. My challenge is to learn to trust and keep the faith and keep going strong. And even when it seems complicated, step out in faith. The Bible clearly says without faith, it's impossible to please him. And so that's what we strive to do, is to step out in faith, even though we're not perfect, and even though sometimes it seems impractical and even complicated, God will take care of the details where his plan is fulfilled. Well, I greatly appreciate the wonderful privilege you give to me to be part of your day. Hope you stick with us as we will jump in next episode into this very familiar and popular story in the Old Testament. Again, we thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again next time.